In 2019, I was volunteering for the Right to Quiet Society based in British Columbia, Canada. I attended a Raincoast Conservation Foundation live event on the future of southern resident killer whale recovery. I wanted to transcribe it to share the content with people who couldn't make the live stream or who couldn't hear enough to understand the content or discussion. This live stream really helped educate me on the issues facing this critically endangered species and how scientists are recommending scientific actions to help save the whales. This is my transcript from 2019, which is also available as a shared document on my website. April 18th, 2019, Raincoast Livestream, The Future of Killer Whale Recovery. Transcriber, I was born and raised in British Columbia near the Salish Sea and deeply care about the future of southern resident killer whales. I attended the Raincoast Conservation Foundation online live stream of this expert panel discussion hosted by Bob McDonald of the CBC. These are my notes. I tried to transcribe in real time, but some content is missing. Any errors in transcribing are my own. April 18th, 2019, population 76, southern resident killer whales. August 6th, 2019, population 73. 3 southern resident killer whales presumed dead after being missing over the summer, from a CBC News article. Aerial images of J17 show the whale from September 2015 to May 2019. The latest images show she is emaciated and with signs of peanut head because of a drastic loss of fat. And the image was from Holly Fernbach and John Durbin of the NOAA Fisheries. Livestream introduction. First Nations believe killer whales, or orcas, are ancestors returning as spirit animals. Misty McDuffie, Wild Salmon Program Director from Raincoast Conservation Foundation, made these points. Southern resident killer whales are Chinook salmon eaters. Population includes J, K, and L pods. Population has been below 100 in the last 45 years. Southern residents visit the Salish Sea following Chinook salmon runs to the Fraser River Delta. In a 2018 study, Chinook salmon populations were listed as endangered, threatened, and special concern for Salish Sea and the Fraser Delta, including the collapse of early Chinook runs. Calves live with their mother and extended family for their entire life. These whales have unique genetics, language, and culture, for example, shared learning. Other killer whales, transients, that feed on marine mammals are unrelated to southern resident killer whales. If nothing is done, southern resident killer whales will go extinct. If all threats are addressed cumulatively, for example, prey, noise, U.S. population recovery targets could be met. 50% less noise and a 15% increase in Chinook is the most powerful target for recovery. This might include Chinook salmon fishing closures and to protect the status of Chinook populations. For boats, mandatory slowdowns of 7 knots within 1 kilometer, no expanded shipping for large ships or vessels until environmental assessments completed. For example, the Trans Mountain Pipeline, Roberts Bank Terminal 2 project. Noise alone will cause extinction. Currently, whales are exposed to tanker traffic 85% of the time, with constant exposure expected if pipeline and shipping increased from proposed projects impacting the Salish Sea and Fraser River Delta. We need to protect foraging areas from prey competition and noise. We need to restore Chinook salmon run habitat to allow them to travel up the Fraser River. Michael Jasny, Director of Marine Mammal Protection from the National Resources Defense Council, made these points. Visibility is limited underwater in the ocean. Sound travels extremely well underwater. Marine mammals use sound for communication, find mates, locate prey, avoid injury, and avoid predators, reproduce, survive in the wild. Ocean noise, especially at frequencies marine mammals use, has serious negative impact on a wide range of species, including mollusks, crustaceans, marine species, estuary species, mammals, and cephalopods. Underwater vessel noise for southern resident killer whales has significant impact on foraging for Chinook salmon, can't hear echolocation signals and vital sounds, chronic stress associated with suppressed immune system, and other adverse health effects. Every increase in dB or decibels above natural ambient makes it harder for whales to use sound as needed, including echolocation. There are few naturally quiet periods. Noisy Salish Sea. Mr. Jasny did a screenshot of a slide where the slide colors represent the amount of environmental noise or ambient natural Salish Sea sound, which would be about 60 dB or a blue color on this map. Brighter colors on the map, like reds, are 120 dB. Southern residents are food deprived, so they're at higher risk from environmental noise stress than if they were a well-fed whale population. Boating traffic from small vessels, like whale watching, and larger commercial vessels disturb whales, making their usable hunting range smaller and smaller. In another screenshot shared on disturbance from small vessels, showing the southern resident killer whales in summer, it shows they're completely surrounded, hour to hour, day to day, in summer months in the Salish Sea. There's less space to hunt and less time spent foraging. It shifts the southern residents' behavioral state from foraging to other activities that expend energy but don't increase nutrient intake. We must give whales a break in the Salish Sea with space to hunt for food unimpeded. Livestream participant comment: the boats fishing don't follow the orcas around all day. The orcas pass through the fleet while the whale watchers follow them all day, kind of like deer coming through a city, then leaving behind, chased by a pack of dogs. Livestream participant comment: listen to Limekiln hydrophone, folks. Dr. Peter S. Ross, Ocean Pollution Science, Vice President of Research at OceanWise, said, southern resident killer whales are the most chemically contaminated population of marine mammals in the world. Persistent bioaccumulative toxic chemicals, including PCPs, per a screenshot that he shared, males are more contaminated than females, developing offspring are more contaminated, it affects their neurological development and reproductive system. You are what you eat. Transient killer whales eating marine mammals are most contaminated. Resident killer whales are next worse. Identifying bad news helps us design effective solutions to protect this species. Marine mammals are like canaries in a coal mine for ocean contaminants. Population won't be at safe PCB levels in tissues until decades in the future. 2050? Since PCBs were banned by regulation, marine mammals like harbor seals have less chemical contamination, fisheries are getting cleaner, safer for wildlife, flame retardant chemicals banned in 2003 to 2007, then harbor seal contamination dropped. Killer whales have a long lifespan and top of the food chain as an apex predator. Fat-soluble air contaminants from Asia are also getting into their food chain. We need to protect killer whales based on scientific evidence on impact of chemical regulations. World War II was the dawn of the chemical era, with 1,000 new chemicals sold every year in Canada. This is a screenshot on how killer whales are highly contaminated with persistent bioaccumulative and toxic chemicals, including PCBs. Bob McDonald added, killer whales' chemical contamination is worse than beluga whales. Science showed if chemical levels in beluga whale tissues were found in a ship, the ship would be banned. And another screenshot of rats and whales. Do chemical regulations protect killer whales? And the answer, of course, is yes, it's needed. Bob McDonald led the discussion on conservation measures needed and local community impact. It was difficult to hear parts of the discussion, so there are gaps in the transcription, especially where I am unfamiliar with the terminologies and issues. For example, related to fish hatcheries, commercial fishing issues. Again, any errors are my own. Issues include whale watching, fishers, First Nations. Misty said, "It's now a crisis, and measures need to be taken for resident killer whales and the Chinook population. Closing salmon fishing is not easy, but if we don't act now, we won't have Chinook populations or southern resident killer whale populations. Hatcheries for wild salmon recovery are not helping like they used to. U.S. salmon hatchery science shows interactions between wild and hatchery fish ecologically at marine environment or spawning grounds hurts wild salmon. We need to wean off hatcheries and work on getting salmon returning to their natal streams." Participant comment. Restoration hatcheries with natural salmon on that estuary, stream, or habitat rebuild local population with natural eggs restored in their indigenous waters. Misty. Self-sustaining population can't always need hatchery fish added every year. Population needs to naturally recover so we can retreat from production hatcheries. Participant question. What number of boats and boat speed is needed for 50% reduction in boat noise? Michael. 50% reduction equals 3 dB decrease in sound due to logarithmic decibel scale. Reduce noise from loudest ship, retrofit, retire noisy ships, and introduce ships with quieter design technologies. Not just loudness, also how noise is experienced over time. But reducing amplitude from loudest ships would have significant positive effects. Bob said, decibel scale is logarithmic. Small increase is decibels is large increase in intensity or loudness. Michael, 10 decibels would be very significant reduction. Participant question. What about ferries or cruise ships? Michael, ferries are a small number of ships, about 30 out of total number of ships. Hours of ferry sector and tug operation in critical Salish Sea habitat exceeds container ship operation hours. In some but not all areas of habitat, there are ferries and tugs, but BC Ferries is in the process of requisitioning new vessels with specifications for quiet design. Commercial ships of goods are well over 1,000 annually. Participant comment. General population hasn't taken responsibility for letting fishers, ecotourists, and others from bad choices. Peter. Only 75 southern resident whales left. Salish Sea, Washington, and BC have 7 million people living on edge of habitat. 700,000 per whale, impacting with noise, chemical and plastic pollution, hurting the Chinook habitat. We must look at our own practices, cleaning supplies, fertilizers, pesticides, waste management. Somebody must take responsibility for safe product or safe chemicals. For example, Ottawa, Government of Canada. Participant question, how many whales should there be? Misty, prior to 1975, aquarians removed an entire generation. The population would be stable around 150 to 200 individuals if that hadn't happened. It always would have been a small population naturally. Bob, what about transient killer whales that don't eat salmon? Could we be seeing change if southern resident killer whales go extinct and transient whales take over? Misty, the Marine Mammal Act helped with recovery of marine mammal populations, seals, that transient whales feed on. Bob, we'd still have whales. Misty, but transient whales aren't historically part of the ecosystem. It would be the first population extinction where we knew the name of every pod member. Participant question, conflicting science. J17 will be dead by summer of starvation. J17 not starving. What explains recovery given no Chinook salmon that year? Chemicals? Disease? Not just prey? Peter, best available evidence is from tissue biopsies, so we know PCBs are a problem for killer whale hormone systems, chronic, slow-acting. Humans with higher levels of PCBs are underweight, permanent spatial motor skill deficits, and lower IQ, lifelong impacts. All three threats are significant, including prey, toxic chemical pollution, and noise. It's a serious issue for calves, including peanut head of J-pod. Bob, What about microplastics? What can be done? Peter, extensive distribution of microplastics in North Pacific and Arctic, found wherever. Every piece of plastic will be around in 1,000 years, does not break down chemically, even though it does physically. Goes from risk to gray whale eating fishermen's boots, or marine mammal entanglement with big pieces of plastic, to smaller and smaller pieces, consumed by smaller and smaller species, linking back to consumers. 80% of microplastics in coastal waters are polyester fibers, and it connects back to home, laundry, and choice of clothing. Question by Martin Patient from Sport Fishing Association. Shutting down fisheries is predicated on assumption harvest is only problem for Chinook. What we have in place now are restrictions to 6% exploitation rate. 94% of adults will return to river to spawn. Entire conversation around Chinook has been focused on Fraser River Chinook. Southern residents like all Chinook. Recent studies showed biomass of Chinook in Puget Sound could support population and future growth. Total prey abundance and critical habitat of southern resident killer whales. Would you suggest availability of prey is the most important factor we need to take at cost of local communities, pain for local communities, move to other measures than focusing on harvest? Misty. FRAM model, Washington Department of Fish and Game, model fish age 2 to age 5. 50% of those fish are 2-year-olds, 3% 4-year-olds, 5% 5-year-old. Southern resident killer whales selectively prefer big, old fish. There's not enough older fish that comprise 85% of southern resident killer whales' diet, high caloric content, year-round availability. For harvest rates, survival on Chinook is below replacement based on recent DFO webinar on Fraser River and Noah's Point. Diet composition in Salish Sea puts emphasis on Fraser River for meeting dietary needs. Escapement goals for early time Fraser Chinook, over 130,000 fish. Early runs used to be the bulk of early Fraser River returns. Last year, 2018, was the lowest number of early spawning Chinook on record, justifiable to close all fisheries. Recreational sector harvests less fish than First Nations, although they have legal priority access. There are no easy answers. Given population status of Chinook and importance of that to killer whales has put us in the crisis we're in. Conclusion. Bob. Debates about who's right. The problem is climate change, not recreational fishers. It bothers me to turn on each other when we need to learn how to cohabit and create a sustainable road ahead. Shared goal. Everyone wants more Chinook, and killer whales would appreciate it too. The decades of habitat destruction, dams, logging, but climate is the one. Thank you to panelists and participants present and online. Thank you to Raincoast Conservation Foundation for hosting this important conversation. Thank you to our speakers for sharing their time and wisdom, and all of you for joining us. To learn more about their programs and the deep work they are doing, check out their website at raincoast.org. Are you concerned for the survival of southern resident killer whales? Now is the time for your input. Raincoast scientists have been working with an international team of scientists, as well as experts at the David Suzuki Foundation, Georgia Strait Alliance, Natural Resources Defense Council, and World Wildlife Fund Canada, to identify what we believe are the best options for recovery, using the best available science and a precautionary approach. Southern resident killer whales are slowly going extinct under status quo conditions. To recover, they require measures that reduce noise, disturbance, and pollution. They also need improved prey availability, in particular more Chinook salmon. Immediate measures can support recovery in 2019. They asked us to contact our federal representatives to ask them to reduce physical and acoustic disturbance from international shipping traffic, a measurable 3 decibel reduction in noise levels in southern resident killer whale foraging areas, no approvals for projects that would increase shipping in critical habitat, such as Roberts Bank Terminal 2, Trans Mountain, and LNG initiatives, until a strategic environmental assessment is completed that considers the accumulative effects of noise and shipping on marine life in the Salish Sea. I sent the letters. This was to our Prime Minister, Transport Canada, and Fisheries Member of Parliament at the time in 2019. I got one response. they said, I'll be sure to read your letter. It's now 2025. It's more urgent to take bold and urgent action than ever before. I hope that you will join me now in 2025 to also push the Canadian federal government and BC provincial government to again stop pushing forward projects like Roberts Bank Terminal 2 that will have a devastating impact and cause extinction of our unique species of southern resident killer whales.